Hi, welcome. Today we are going to, in this video lecture, basically, we are going to look to the optimum labor time topic or hours of work, basically, how many hours workers supply as their labor time. And this is an interesting topic because in the previous section, actually, when we have looked to the classical economists like Adam Smith, Ricardo, they never took this into effect. Actually, the labor force participation, the actual number of labor workers available, was the only um, factor that was important for the labor supply. But in modern day, the average hours people work is also considered as an important factor that is determining labor supply. What determines this is a debate, a political debate at least, and in academia, even though majority of the economists stand on the one side of that debate, there are also significant number of people who are standing on the other side of the debate. We will see in a minute. So labor hours are special, average hours worked, and the lastly the uh, human capital. These are three factors that determine the characteristics of the labor supply. So the picture here is actually part of this part of the debate actually also, but also the actual struggle that spring out of that debate. That is the attempt to reduce the um, uh, daily working time to 8 hours, and that's actually the slogan: 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will for recreation, basically, which was considered once as the most natural type of um, distribution of time of a person. Um, so 8 times 5, if you have 2 days day weekend, would make also 40-hour working week, which is kind of a standard week actually. I mean, if you again in many countries that is considered as the standard working time, 40 hour per week. So you can see here two different videos which are interesting actually in my opinion. Uh, One of them is looking from the worker's perspective, the other one from the employer's perspective. But they are looking to the same thing, which is standard working time. Well, as I said, in most countries, 40 hours is considered as the standard working time. That's the time uh, this, which is considered as full time by the state or regulators. And also, usually there is also a starting time and end time for the standard working time. Um, 8, 5, 8, or 9, 9, 6 basically could be starting and ending time. Usually, night is considered as a separate time in overtime, night shifts, especially after 7, if not 6. Uh, so, this standard working time was something for which actually workers have also fought for because it kind of fixes, you know, how much you will work. You don't work more than that particular time. But it is some workers, some economists have considered that actually was taking out the workers. I mean, when it is set at standardized by outside authority, it takes the ability of the employer and the worker to negotiate for their own needs and basically make a decision according to their own needs. So maybe the worker wants to work 15 hours, but the strictness of the labor market is taking that ability. Maybe the worker also willing to work for 15 hours for a lower wage, and the employer is willing to accept it. But without because state is forbidding them to make that kind of an agreement, worker might not be hired in that case. Although the opposing idea is usually, I mean, the workers and the employers are not coming together as equals, and worker has a low bargaining power, so he when he's alone needs to accept basically what the employer offers to him. So that's why the bargaining should be done at national level, as standards put by the state should basically set the labor standards, or at union level the bargaining should be done. Of course, in that case, some certain groups might stay outside of the labor force and they might work illegally, like women or college students or migrant labor workers, for example. Uh, so this is the counter argument, but the idea that the labor market should be more flexible, the employers should be able to decide when their workers will work, how long they will work, whether they will work temporary or permanent. And the idea that this is important, this flexibility will improve the economic system, is stated in the second video. In the first video, you have something else. You have the idea that workers' productivity is likely to increase if that flexibility is given to the workers. So in that case, if employers give workers the flexibility, they give the workers the ability to decide when to work, where to work, how long they will stay at the workplace. This will increase, according to the first video, the productivity of the worker. So with increasing technological abilities and non-standardized work, which can be done anywhere, anytime, according to this idea, this video actually, for many types of jobs, actually, a standard working time where predetermined time is set for the worker to come to the workplace and do the work is not anymore necessary. So these two videos are actually, I'm keeping them, and previously actually the discussion of this week was also on the standard working time, although this term I decided to put another topic which is also, in my opinion, very interesting: universal basic income. I will briefly introduce that topic also, but just watch the video and think about this standard working time idea a little bit if you're interested, especially. Now let's continue. Okay, same idea. Background information. We have a long lecture slides, although many of them, I will pass many of them very fast, basically. But you can read them in more detail. They can serve you as a lecture note also, basically. So, well, average number of hours is a typical worker work per day, per week, or is the second variable that gives information on labor supply. This is what we have mentioned. If you go to the pre-capitalist era, actually this is kind of telling the story of the labor time. Labor time is set by nature or by demand. If you are working in agricultural areas, in that case there are certain periods, seasons, where there is a high demand for the labor. Still, this is true. Still, this makes agriculture a special type of job or sector, where usually, I mean, hiring standard workers is not possible. If someone is able to work at a factory, it's very much unlikely for him to work at the farm also, because farm jobs, you have job for a certain time of the year, but at other seasons you don't have that job anymore, because in a farm at the time of harvest and at the time when you plant the crops to the ground, there's a lot of work. In other seasons, there is not much work. You just make sure that the field gets enough water and enough fertilizers, maybe, but not. You don't have much work. So working time is set by the nature, and pretty much, I mean, uh, uh, if you need to work at a certain season, you need to work at season, and you cannot say, okay, let's wait and work tomorrow a little bit more. You cannot shift the work because that work is required at that time. For example, if there's a hail raining, I mean, you immediately need to go to the field and protect the field, basically. You cannot say, okay, do it tomorrow, like other types of jobs. So this is these are the farms. Well, in other places, it was like workshop type of uh, workplaces, like carpenters, for example. They could not do a lot of, for example, tables, a lot of clothing if they are weavers, a lot of metal work. Rather, they got orders, and they only work when they got the order. Um, so, well, uh, previously it was also like you cannot make many number of chairs and um, standardized chairs, standardized tables, standardized clothing, and then sell them at will. Rather, people wanted pre-ordered tables, chairs, or clothing, basically. If you low-income people were doing their own furniture, creating, crafting their own furniture and their own clothing. People who are living in the cities, in the Middle Ages and later, they are more likely to buy their goods like clothing and furniture from craftsmen. Uh, so this was previously how the workshops were working. As in 17th and 18th century, and previously to some extent also the trade centers like Venice and Netherlands, basically. This is some workplaces which have the ability to sell their products to many different places. Their market is extended, so they can send to the whole country, whole England, for example, or whole world even. They produce as much as they can with the workforce they have in the workshop. And that was actually the core of the predecessors of the factory. So in 17th and 18th century, when the national economies, first in England, France, and in other countries, then merged, and then a global economy is created. The factories begin to produce as much output as they can and find markets to sell them. Now you make pre-designed clothes, pre-designed furniture without getting special orders from the people, and people buy them. People buy them after it is manufactured. Not they don't order to the factories to build to produce that clothing or that furniture. So when that's the case, of course, now it is worth for the workers to work as long as they can. And the workforce was desperate. They could not bargain, basically. So the working times rise to very high limits. They could be as high as 16 hours per day. So which leaves 8 hours for sleeping and everything else, basically. So that was maybe the time when Adam Smith and Ricardo and Marx was also writing, where the idea that workers were working as long as they can come from. Well, we will see how theory will actually develop from there, but we will see it in the next part. See you in the next part.